Starquay Police, Detective Henry. My name is Detective Christopher Dean Henry with Henrico County Police, currently assigned to Criminal Investigations Homicide Unit. This case is the death investigation of Starquay Spruill from September the 3rd of 2018. Starquay Spruill was a 24-year-old female who lived in the Newbridge neighborhood of Henrico County. She was a mother to 2 children.
That girl deserves for somebody to know what happened to her. Her kids deserve to know what happens to her. Why their mother is not here. We can't even explain it to them. We don't know how to explain it to them. We couldn't even have a funeral for her. We had to cremate her body. And it's so sad. It's so sad. Her urn right on my nightstand. When I say that was my girl, that was my girl. Like, me and Starquay was like thick as thieves. Raised her from a little baby. I know Starquay was well known with a lot of her peers. She was loved by many, and I know a lot of people miss her. Starquay was the most compassionate, most considerate person, happy, lovable. She just see the good in everybody. She's just a sweet girl. It's been 2.5 years and we have nothing. And it's just, That's what haunts me every night, when I think about how she was taken away.
This case started on September the 3rd of 2018. Henrico Police were called to the 4100 block of Benton Avenue. It's near the racetrack area of Henrico County. 2 men who were walking down the street noticed a large wooden box just off the roadway in a wooded area. They attempted to open the box, and once they opened the box, they discovered what they believed to be a body inside and then called the police. At this time, the person was unidentified. Once the medical examiner started to break down the box and actually remove the body, they were able to identify the remains as belonging to Starquay Spruill, who was reported as a missing endangered adult on August the 5th of 2018. The medical examiner's office has classified this an undetermined cause of death due to the findings of her toxicology screening and the lack of trauma that was noted to her body at the time of autopsy. This isn't your average death investigation. I have been in homicide for about 1.5 years at this point. I've been a police officer at this point for 11+ years, and it was unlike anything I had seen. It was chilling to see. It's something you see in movies, but don't expect to actually see it in real life, and here it is, and I'm looking at it. It looked like a homemade coffin. I mean, it was a plywood box big enough to put a body inside of. It was spray painted for most of the size of the box. Not all of it was painted. It looked to be something that was handmade, not something that you can just go into a hardware store and buy. Basically a plywood coffin that somebody built to put something inside of.
And her not being here for the last 2 years is still kind of surprising, because we just don't understand why she's not here. You know, a lot has happened in the 2 years. A lot has happened in the 2 years that she's always on my mind. I always think about her. But I just don't understand why she's not here. I just don't. And it seems like nobody knows nothing. And what happened to her and the way it happened to her, somebody knows something. And I just want somebody to tell her story. Let us know what happened to her. That's all we want to know, so we can be at peace. And it hasn't been a lot of peace with the not knowing.
When I arrive on scene, it's nearby a residential neighborhood, but this is a dead-end street. It runs all the way down to where a cell phone tower is located. There's one business just before this, but there's no other houses, no other businesses, no other reason to go down here. So when we got here in September, this area was a lot more grown up with vegetation and growth than it is now. But you can see this is a gravel turnoff to vehicles can come down to the dead end, use this to turn around and then exit back towards Benton. And you could see the box was in the growth back here, straight in from where the gravel takes you in, probably somewhere in this general area right here. And it was in this position where somebody could easily see it from the roadway to begin with, and that's why they ultimately called after they opened it up and found the body inside. Once we identified the remains as being Starquay Spruill, it was going back and talking to the people who reported her missing, who were close friends from the neighborhood that she lived in Newbridge Apartments, trying to figure out who her close friends were, who she had as enemies, if she had any. There were reports early on of her being accused of taking property that belonged to an individual who was incarcerated, and that people were actively trying to find her in order to recover this property. Or that was the early motive that I investigated as to the reason that she was ultimately reported as missing, that it could have possibly been an abduction situation that ultimately led to her death. On the morning of August the 4th, Starquay reported to police that people had broken out a window to her apartment and that people were actively kicking at her door, trying to get her to open the door and to let them inside. This went along with the train of thought that people were after her, trying to recover this property. And on the night of August the 5th, Henrico officers were doing foot patrol in her neighborhood and found her door to her apartment to be open. They went inside, didn't see her. Some friends came to the apartment to try to get in contact with her, and nobody could get in contact with her. And that's what led to her being reported as a missing adult. Up to this point, there had only been one, sighting of Starquay, or a call-in or a tip that she had been seen in the downtown Richmond area sometime around August the 8th. We followed up by driving around, showing her picture to people that were out and about those few days following that tip, and nobody else had offered any more information saying that they had seen her. There's a long period of time between when she was reported missing and to when she was ultimately found, that she's either staying with other people, she's trying to hide on her own, or potentially she's taken against her will and she's being held somewhere. That information could help fill the gaps in the timeline. That's just as important as who built the box that she was found in, as to who she could have been staying with that could have heard or seen things that would be helpful.
To get a phone call at work, your niece is missing. And I'm like, what do you mean she's missing? We just talked to her. For her to go missing for 30 days and nobody seen her, nobody knows nothing, we all know that that's not true. Because Starquay is very people-oriented. She will talk to a total stranger and you will fall in love with her. You'll have a conversation with her like you knew her your whole life. The justice for me would be finding the person or persons that is responsible for her death and them being put behind bars.
You have a family who wants closure and wants to understand what happened to Starquay, and we still need answers as to how she actually died. In investigating her case, I don't feel like this was carried out by just one person. I feel like this had to be the actions of multiple people, that multiple people would have heard or seen things that took place that led to where her body was recovered. We're now at a point where we need the help of the public and people who either heard or saw things to confirm the things that we already know and to fill in the gaps of the things that we don't know. We just need people who heard and saw things to come forward and to say those things so we can find the people who did this to her.